Hey, good morning, everybody. Morning. Just starting out with a little bit of saddle grade leather on Mary Deignan's 1931 101-4. This machine has been here waiting for a while to have its glory, so finally get a chance to show off what this machine can do. And those of you that aren't familiar with the 101s that came out in the 1920s, they were the predecessor to the 201-2 that everyone on this channel knows about. The Rolls Royce of singers. This was the father of that great legacy, the 101 that came out in the 1920s. And this specific subversion, this 101-4, came on the scene right around 1929. And they made this particular subversion until right around 1937. So it had a good run from 1929 until 1937. But it wasn't the first in this series of 101s. The first one came on the scene all the way in 1920, and that obviously was the 101-1. But our focus today will be on this -4 that really was a great beginning step towards trying to use a number of innovative features that Singer was coming out with, the potted motor, and then also the sump system. The whole bed of this machine comes off, as you'll see in the progress shots, and their idea was that you wouldn't have to tilt this machine back. You could just take the entire cover off, service the machine from the top, and it was supposed to make it a lot easier for the end user. So that was their thinking on the sump system, or the spider system, that was introduced all the way back in 1929. Long before the 201-2 was even a twinkling in the eye. Um, the 201-2 didn't come on the scene until right around 1935. So the 101 series was around for about 15 years before we ever got the privilege of talking about a Rolls Royce of Singer sewing machines. Yeah. So our first little sew off, nothing spectacular. Single layer of saddle grade leather. Shouldn't say nothing spectacular. It's not easy. It's probably about 4 ounces of leather, as you can see. And even back in the 1920s, the technology of the potted motor was far enough along. And some of you don't know it, but the original potted motor on the 101 was actually a little bit bigger than what the 201-2 came out with in 1935. So, yeah, bragging rights, bragging rights. And this machine belongs to Mary, my friend from Washington State. Mary's kind of a household name. She always gets involved with causes that I present to all of you, as many of you do as well. So it's always fun to present one of Mary's machines. Also, off camera, sewed some of this Italian leather. Everything from more of a standard stitch. Hopefully that comes into focus eventually. They just don't like the lights, do they? Nah. Let me back this up a little bit. So that's supposed to be Italian leather right there. 2 layers of that, probably about 6 or 8 ounces. Protected full grain leather. Decided really to test that stitch length capability on this 101-4. And so buzzed down and did just a huge variety of stitch rows with this one. And then a little bit of a endurance power test with the machine. Decided to just buzz down and try 2 layers of this genuine elk hide. You can see that from the side. That is something that a lot of people would not expect a machine that was introduced in the 1920s to be able to handle. This was designed as a household sewing machine. And here I am sewing about 8 to 10 ounces of genuine elk hide and laying down absolute page 34 stitching on it. So this is what I've done already. The saddle grade on camera and then the rest of this off camera. And this machine is just not missed a beat. Let me talk to you about the setup on this today. The setup on this 101-4 today is I'm actually using a leather needle. Decided to put in one of my Schmetz 9014 leather needles. So I oftentimes talk about the fact that I'm sewing a lot of leather. Let me back this up even a little bit further. The fact that I'm sewing a lot of leather and I'm not using a leather needle, well, today I can't say that. Today I'm actually using this 9014 Schmetz leather needle. And the difference between, say, the universals that I use all the time and a leather needle like this is going to be the point, and the shaft and the scarf is going to have a lot clearer cutting edge to it for going through leather, which will help us on the leather, but it's not going to help us as much on some of the other types of materials that we might be sewing during this live stream today. So kind of a two-edged sword, isn't it? The thread we're using, hold on a second. Oh, gumdrops. Hold on a second. There we go. Had the cord caught. The thread we're going to be using today is none other than the dual duty Coates and Clark. Nothing super fancy, just a nice standard type thread. I would say about middle of the road. And it's going to give us the ability to sew pretty much anything we want to sew with this 101-4. So the last couple of times I've done live streams and premieres, I've been cutting it short on showing the progress shots. So I'm going to try to do some of that straight away. We already did a little bit of a sewing with the saddle grade leather. And now I want to show you some of those progress shots before we launch into too much additional sewing. And hopefully you'll be able to see that. Oh, I can also say hello to everybody. Say hello to Emma and Mindy and Paula and Kevin and Doreen and Aaron. Always good to see Aaron pop up. I don't think I missed anybody. If I missed anybody, I apologize. But great to have all of you here. I actually had this machine ready to go yesterday, but I thought, you know what? I better not try to pull off a live stream Monday. That might be pushing things a little bit hard as far as the loyalty of my friends. So let's see if I can click over here and we'll just take a look at some of the progress shots. So what is that opening shot of? Any of you guys recognize that? I'm going to see if I can open up another screen to see what you're seeing. Well, that's obviously going to be part of the potted motor on this 101-4. And you can see they've got a special coating. This is actually not dirt. That's actually a special coating to protect the stacked lamentations as part of that motor assembly. Holy mackerel. The music decided to go crazy all of a sudden. All right, I'm going to turn that back a bit. All right, let me click through some of these photos to show you some stuff. So this older style potted motor has a lot of opportunity for getting buildup of the old grease. And you can see that in the shot right there. It's basically probably the original grease from right around 1931. And it's never been changed. It's never been cleaned. It's never been updated in any way. Distant shot of Mary's machine there. You can see not a bad looking machine, but needed a bunch of cleanup, including the bed. You can see the bed was in a real bad state. And what I decided to do with the bed is just go with a flat black cleanup of the bed and give it a little bit more pizzazz, and then decide, whether or not I wanted to see if I could do some decal replacement on it afterwards. I decided afterwards it probably didn't really need it. It's got a real nice, clean, pretty look to it now, instead of this kind of chalkiness. There's our badge mark, and you can see it's got a lot of varnishing and a lot of buildup on it. There's that bed again. The bed is nothing to nothing to celebrate. And the bed is such a focal point for any machine that I decided to spend a little bit of extra time cleaning that up. I showed you guys when I first presented this machine that when you're working on the stop action and the clutch release and that on this machine, you got to be real careful, because there's a series of washers that have to be taken off in order and reassembled in order as well. If you get them out of order, the machine is not going to work properly. So I kind of showed you the stack right there. And when I took this machine initially through a live stream, I was showing you a lot of that part of the machine, because I didn't want anybody to goof up. Because as soon as you pull that the balance wheel off, those washers just drop off, and they don't drop off in order either. So here you can see the bottom of that 101-4. It's got almost a barrel type design to it. So it's not designed to be self-standing like its successor, the 201-2, that has the pedestal feet. This one has to be mounted in a table or in a base like the one that Mary picked out for it. So not a self-standing machine. It just isn't designed to do that. And this particular machine would come with, if you're ever looking for the original cabinet, it comes with cabinet number 40. So and also the 101-3 is going to be using the same type of cabinet as well. Does anyone know when this 101-4 was first introduced? I mentioned it near the beginning of the live stream. And I'm not looking at the chat right now, so I don't know if you're typing in it or not. But it was first introduced in 1929. So back in 1929, it was in a cabinet, and it would have been cabinet number 40. There you can see part of the bottom, and you can see near the bottom of the machine, near the faceplate area, on the bottom edge is where you're going to find that serial number. And the serial number on this machine, you can see it in the shot there, AD345685, if I'm reading that correctly. So that's going to give us a birth date of right around April of 1931. There's even a clearer shot of it right there. A lot of wiring stuff going on with Mary's machine. And Mary originally got this machine by way of eBay. I do have customers that will pick up machines elsewhere. They might get them on Goodwill online. They might get them on eBay or other venues like that. And in most cases, what they do is they elect to have that machine sent directly to the workshop. And that way I can deal with all of the issues. And when they get the machine, it's all set to go. It's already gone through a complete inspection. That's just a part of the plastic plug-in that had broken off. But there again, you can see that motor assembly. It's just one of these assemblies that it really has a high propensity to gunk up. And a lot of folks, out of sight, out of mind, they never do anything with their motors. And that's why they don't perform well. Look at all that junk in there. Just gives you an idea. Gives you an idea of just how filthy this machine was. It came from eBay. And no doubt the seller that sold it to Mary probably in their description had something like fully serviced, fully restored. Not even close, huh? Not even close. They were starting to give a bath to the motor as well, using some solvents to break down that decades and decades of grease layers that were just choking the life out of this motor. That's cute. Getting those layers, getting that motor starting to move freely again, so that it actually has something even close to its rating of around 0.6 amps. And I talked about it being a slightly larger motor. The standard 201-2 that came out 15 years after the 101 series was introduced came typically with a 0.5 amp motor. So this isn't a huge difference, but the technology also improved with the motor wraps and the motor design of the potted motors. So even though it was rated a little bit smaller, it was able to perform just as well as these original 0.6 amp 101 type motors. More parts of the motor wraps. Again, part of that is dirt that we're looking at right now, but it also is a special coating that at that time they were putting on the stack lamentations to try to protect them. Lots of wiring concerns with this machine. Look at all that filth. All of that filth that broke free that was just gumming up this motor. And again, a motor service like this takes a couple of hours. It's not going to be something that the average service center would ever want to take on because it would be cost prohibitive. I should just take a look at the chat real quick. Hopefully you guys can see. But I say it all the time, the dirt and stuff that builds up in these potted motors, it's not just a matter of it being yucky. It causes the motors to run hot. And when you've got a closed case design like this, where that cover goes on the back and all of that heat that potted motor generates builds up in there, it also causes the motor to run hot, but it also causes the wiring to break down as well. So look at that liquid right there. That's all sludge and everything that was flushed out of Mary's motor. And again, typically when you buy things on eBay, they're going to be using language like fully serviced, fully restored. It just gives you an idea of why, if you decide to pick up a machine somewhere else, it's a good practice to look at having that seller sending it directly to the workshop. It's definitely a good practice. Otherwise, all of this is going to be staying inside of that machine. Look at the filth on that. Look at the filth on that paper towel. Just the additional residual that dripped out once I took that out of that bath. They're doing some cleanup on the stack lamentations, getting it all tidied up. Part of the stators on the inside of there, getting those cleaned up as well. You can see the difference between this area and this area that's already been serviced. Now see, how would you like all that to be in your motor? All of that junk, all of that crud, all of that sludge, causing your motor to run super hot and not putting out nearly the power that it could be putting out. Hey. Getting that motor put back together again now. There's also lubrication wells on the motor that have to be pulled. There's additional sludge that should be a clean grease lubricating the main shaft as that motor spins up. And right now it's just septic, just absolutely septic. Wiring issues as well, major concerns. More sludge. You can just see that Q-tip swab. And that's just one of many, obviously. One of many. And I think that's full circle. So I wanted to share at least some of the progress shots with you. Let me kind of spin this around now. Wanted to share at least some of the progress shots with you so that you can appreciate where the machine started and how it's able to perform today so easily, so easily. All right, let me get back to some sewing on this machine. So again, if you join the live stream a little bit late, the setup on the machine today is we're actually using a leather needle, a size 9014 Schmetz needle, and we're using Coats & Clark dual duty thread. Now, what about the setup on this machine? When you're setting this machine up, you need to make sure that you set it up the opposite of the 201-2. And by that, I mean when you're setting the needle, you need to make sure that the flat side is to the right. You need to make sure that you're threading this machine from left to right. It's the opposite with the 201-2. So if you have a 101 and you have a 201-2, you definitely don't want to be using the same manuals because the setup on these two machines is 180 degrees opposite. So again, with a 101 like this, set the flat side to the right, thread the machine from left to right, and when you put the bobbin into the raceway area, you want to make sure that that bobbin is turning counterclockwise. Whereas if this were the 201-2 that I just got done showing you guys, you would be setting up the flat side to the left, threading the needle from right to left, and the bobbin turn would be clockwise. I just don't want to confuse you guys because the machines are 180 degrees different. 180 degrees different between the two. So what should we sew next on this machine? What should we sew next? What should we sew next? I talked about the leather needle. We might as well put that leather needle to work. It's actually too close. Let's go ahead and do some elk hide. I did this off camera already. And you can see from the side, we're looking at probably about 4 ounces of elk hide. Let's go ahead and buzz down this and see how easily this machine can do elk hide. Again, the setup on this machine is going to be a little bit different than the 201-2 when it comes to how that motor engages that main shaft. So on the 101s, you might have a tendency to need to use a little bit more hand starting on them than on the 201-2. Although I didn't need much there, did I? Beautiful stitching. Oh my gosh. That's what we just laid down right there. If you've never sewn elk hide before, it is a tough leather to get through, and yet Mary's machine just did it with absolute ease. There's our lock stitch on the back. Looks like we're getting really good balance right now. And we do have the advantage of that leather needle, so that helps quite a bit. Let's go ahead and raise the stakes on this and see if we can get through 2 layers. I did it off camera. But again, what you can do off camera as opposed to on camera is not always the same. So this is what we're going to be attempting now. And again, this was introduced right around 1929 is when the 101-4 series was first introduced. 1929. And so even though Mary's machine came on the scene much later than that, I shouldn't say much later, 1931 versus 1929, but this was set up as a household sewing machine. They really didn't conceive at that time of sewing at this level with a machine like this. But once I've taken it through my preparation process, because this machine is fully serviced, fully restored, and it's got forged steel throughout, we're able to sew at a level like this that they never conceived of back in the 1920s. At least that's the plan. Let's give this a go. So if you've got a 101 Singer 101-4 like this, and you can't sew through these 2 layers of leather like this, that's probably a real clear indication as to what that machine needs, right? It needs a trip to the workshop. All right, let's give this a go. 2 layers of this, and I do have this back to back, so we should be able to see that lock stitch very well. All right, here we go. 2 layers of genuine elk hide. Keep your fingers and toes crossed. Here we go. And I can see just a little bit of a compression of that stitch going through those 2 layers. But we still got a beautiful page 34 stitch going through 2 layers of genuine elk hide. Look at that from the side again. Absolute page 34 stitching. Here's our lock stitch. Obviously, we're only going to have 1 stitch line because we just went through that second layer. And here again, you're seeing stitching that is absolutely page 34. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch. And that's not easy to do, even though we're using a leather needle. The level of sewing that we're pushing this originally designed household sewing machine through right now is just way off the charts. You're not going to see folks on most YouTube channels putting a 101-4 through this level of sewing, especially if it hasn't gone through a complete service, because that potted motor is just not going to be able to handle it. Beautiful stitching, beautiful stitching. I haven't shown you guys this for a while. This is that fake leather stuff. It's got a lot of vinyl running through its veins. And this is the kind of stuff that they used to use on the old chairs to cover the chairs. See how this machine handles this fake leather. I'm loving this music, but I'm going to pause this music for just a second. that music on pause for a second so you can hear this machine running. Yeah, this was a real popular covering for chairs and other things like that to give it the leather look, but it's definitely primarily vinyl. Very, very popular stuff back in the day. All right. There we go. And I think we'll do a couple of stitch lines on here. We'll do one stitch line uh, nearly full size. And I haven't even shown you guys yet how you adjust stitch length on this machine. Most often when you're looking at a machine like this, as a singer, you're going to be expecting to see that lever right in this area on the pillar where we can adjust it up and down to get longer stitch length. On the 101, it's going to be on the bed. This little dial right here is going to allow us to adjust the stitch length anywhere from around 6 stitches per inch all the way down to 30. So as I adjust this from this little jewel marker that I added to the bed, it's going to give us the ability to have a huge stitch length range. Let's see what that looks like on this fake leather. There we go. All right, so we're going to be right around 6 stitches per inch, and then we're going to back it way down after that. So let's see what we get. Whenever you're sewing a material that has a high concentration of vinyl in it, it's going to right away make it challenging for that machine to deliver. High likelihood of skip stitches, stitch malformation, and just all kinds of challenges can crop up when you're dealing with a material like this. But Mary's machine just did a beautiful job. Beautiful job. I'm going to set that right there. You can kind of look down that stitch line right there. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch. Exactly what we want to be seeing on a semi tricky material that has a huge amount of vinyl built into it. Huge amount of vinyl. Oh, I thought Emma would probably post the technical name of what this material is called. And she did. Thank you for doing that, Emma. Naga hide, Naga hide. Fun stuff. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust our stitch length from right around 7 stitches per inch. And we're going to take it down a good distance. Let's go to right around 12. Right around 12. All right, we're going to do our next stitch line. And we've gone all the way from around 6 or 7 stitches down to around 12. And then we'll lay down one more even smaller next to that. All right, here we go. I don't know. I set that low enough. We might not have to go much smaller than that. So does anyone have a Singer 101 in their collection? Do we have any Singer 101 owners out there? I'm sure we have a number of people that either have or are acquiring a 201-2. But if you haven't seen one of these machines do its thing before, you're having a chance to see it today. Beautiful stitching all the way down. So we're right around 12 stitches per inch right now. We're going to go smaller than that. There's our lock stitch on the back of there. All right, let's drop that stitch even further now. So we're right around 12 stitches per inch. Let's go down to about right around 20. Let's go to 20 next. See what we think of that. All right, so take up arms at the highest position. Now we're laying down about 20 stitches per inch. Let's see what we think of this one. Here we go. And again, we're using a leather needle, which could be a disadvantage on this nylon-based material. Oh, that's teeny tiny. Oh, that's teeny tiny. Oh my gosh. We are down there in the satin range. We are way down there in the satin range. Check that out. Isn't that something? It's fun to watch that gradual progression down from 6 or 7 stitches down to about 12, and then finally all the way down to about 20 stitches per inch. And we've maintained the stitch integrity and the stitch clarity all the way through the entire process, all the way through the entire process. On the back side, we've got beautiful lock stitching, but I could probably even look at, yeah, that's pretty doggone close. I was going to say we could even look at adjusting that a little bit to get that even more definition, but some beautiful, beautiful stitching on this this fake leather material. All right, so I'm going to set that to the side. So now we've given this machine a chance to sew real leather, fake leather. Let's change material types now. What should we do next? Why don't we move over to some denim? Denim is something that would have been very, very commonly used on a machine like this designed for household sewing back in the 1920s. Of course, they probably would not have been looking at sewing as many layers as we're going to be sewing now. So we're starting with 2 layers. I'm going to go ahead and fold it in half, get us up to 4 layers, and then I'm going to fold it one more time and get us all the way up to 8 layers of heavy grade denim. And this is not that stretchy denim that you've seen me sew before. This is going to be more of a standard denim type material, so it's not quite as tricky to sew. See if we can actually fit that underneath the presser foot. Get that needle all the way up. And I've got to remember to adjust my stitch length back so we can get more of a full size. There we go. So we were all the way down to about 20 stitches per inch. I brought it back now. Closer to about 7. Closer to about 7. Does anyone sew denim quite a bit on their machines at home? Have you done 8 layers before? Probably not. 8 layers on a household sewing machine is not a common practice, but I think we're going to be able to get it done very easily on Mary's. All right, here we go. And down to the finish. And I'm not going to close the box. Not going to close the box. All right, let me give you an initial glimpse. Again, that's what we just sewed through right there. Let me back this camera up just a little bit. That's what we just sewed through. 8 layers of heavy grade denim. And that's our stitching right there. It doesn't get any better than that, folks. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch through that much denim. And again, we're not using a denim needle. We're using a 9014 Schmetz leather needle to sew denim. But again, if the machine is set up properly and serviced properly, you can still push the boundaries on it with a less than ideal setup for sewing this much denim. Look at that from the side. It gives you an idea, doesn't it? It gives you an idea. There's our lock stitch right there on the back. Beautiful, beautiful lock stitching as well through that much denim. And again, when you're using a leather needle, it's great for leather, but as soon as you move to a more of a woven type material like this, it can create some challenges. But Mary's machine did a beautiful job of managing it, truly. So you can see when you get to that level of sewing on denim, it actually creates a quilted look to it as well, doesn't it? Beautiful, beautiful stitching. So far on this live stream, we haven't sewn a ton, but we've done the 8 layers of denim. We've done this fake leather stuff. We've done the elk hide, 2 layers of that. I think we should move over to probably some cotton now. See if we can sew cotton with a leather needle. Let's go for that. So I've got this fat quarter stuff. I don't have Paula Noel's Kona cotton today. I didn't set any of that up. But I've got this 100% cotton from Fat Quarters that I picked up at a local retailer. We're going to give this a try now. See what we think of this. So we're really pushing the boundaries on this 101-4 from 1931. We've sewn fake leather, we've sewn denim, and we've sewn elk hide. Now we're going to be trying 100% cotton. See what we think of this. And of course I need cotton sewing music to do this by. Yeah. All right, let's lay down some stitching on this 100% cotton now. And again, our setup is a 9014 Schmetz leather needle. Here we go. I would say that that's page 34. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. Isn't it fun to be able to jump around between materials like that? You don't have to stick to one thing. You can jump all over the board if that machine is running at the top of its game. All right, let's adjust that stitch length down now. We'll do several rows. Isn't that gorgeous stitching? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yep, I'm going to I bumped up my upper tension just a little bit to tighten up that lock stitch even a little bit more. All right, let's go down from about 6 stitches per inch down to about 10 now. Give you several rows on this cotton. All right, here we go. And YouTube is having problems with their music again. So the first row we did is right around 6 stitches per inch. Now we're down to about 10 stitches per inch. We're going to keep on going down and down and down and down and down. Now I'm going down to about 12 stitches per inch. All right, let's drop it even further. We're at 12 stitches per inch. Now we're going to go all the way down to about 20. And again, our setup is not with a needle that would be friendly to cotton. We're sewing with a leather needle on cotton. A leather needle on cotton. It's a little crazy, but that's okay. All right, we're going to go one more step down. We're at 20 stitches per inch. We're going to drop it all the way down to max at 30 stitches per inch. I very seldom will drop it this far down. Very seldom. Let's give it a try. This would be so much easier to do if we had like a size 70 needle instead of a size 90, but oh well, let's give it a try. See how this manages a sew off of this difficulty. All right, here we go. So we started all the way on this end, right around 6 stitches per inch, went to about 12, 20. I think I missed a step in there somewhere. And then we came all the way down to this final row on the far left side, laying down about close to 30 stitches per inch. It gives you an idea of the stitch variation that this machine from the, originally came out in 1929 was capable of doing, and laying down consistent results throughout. So very impressed, very, very impressed, especially sewing with a size 90-14 leather needle. You guys have seen this before. Commercial upholstery material. Let's go ahead and sew some of this as well. 2 layers is what we're starting at. 4 layers. And then finally 6 layers. You just make sure I didn't miscount that. Yep, that's 6 layers. You kind of get an idea of what we're going to be going through. And I think we'll go down and around on this. All right, let's see if we can get through this without a hand start. Oh, I forgot to change the stitch length back. Ah! Hold on a second. We're down at 30 stitches per inch. Oops. All right, let's try that again. All right, here we go. It's really dry down in the workshop, so this thread is like super static charged. Look at from the side what we just went through. commercial upholstery material, 6 layers of it. Here's our lock stitch, just as spot on as that top stitch. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. So far in this live stream, we've done this huge stitch range on this 100% cotton. We've done the denim, 8 layers of that. We've done this fake leather. We've done the elk hide. And last but not least, the 6 layers of commercial upholstery material. That's not a bad sew-off sandwich on a live stream. Not bad at all. But we've got a little bit more to do. A little bit more to do. And we might as well go back to leather again since we've got a leather needle in the machine today. Let's do that. Let's go down and around on this saddle grade leather. And again, we're going to be doing 2 layers of it, which is probably about 6 ounces of leather, about 6 ounces. Oh, I don't know if I said hello to Joelle yet. Hey, Joelle. Joelle and Paula is here as well, and Emma. Very cool, very cool. All right, let's go down and around on this these 2 layers of saddle grade leather. See what we think of this. I kind of went too far, didn't I? Oh, well. I'm going to cheat and kind of go like a little V thing here, and I'll go back down this row again. Look at that stitching, though, folks. Oh, my gosh. There are advantages to using a leather needle on leather, isn't there? The way it cuts that and lays down that stitch row is just, oh, my gosh. Isn't that gorgeous stitching? Beautiful, beautiful stitching. All right, let's go back the other way. That wasn't part of my original plan, but that's okay. See from the side? So anyone that has ever said a 101 is not able to sew at the level of a 201-2, they just haven't had a properly working 101, because we're sewing at a level on this 101 right now that I would also push a 201-2 to. And you guys have seen me do crazy stuff with 201-2s. So it just goes to show you, even though this came on the scene originally, the Class 101 came on the scene 15 years before the 201-2 was ever developed, it was able to lay down page 34 stitching through crazy thicknesses of leather, even with the older style potted motor, even with the older technology, because this motor isn't designed nearly as sophisticated as the later 201-2 motor was. The quality of wraps, the stators, the stack lamentations, and everything else that comprise that motor really made some huge technology strides in that 201-2 series. But you know what? They didn't need it. They didn't need it because this potted motor was able to deliver at a level like this, like you just saw it do, and lay down stitching that's absolutely brag-worthy through saddle grade leather. Saddle grade leather is not an easy leather, for goodness sakes. I mean, it's called saddle grade leather for a reason. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. I don't know how else I can really test this 101, to be honest with you. We put it through some crazy, crazy steps already. Well, let's do another sew off, and this is going to be the Italian style leather. And this time I'm going to be doing my sewing in a circle thing, because I want to show you that you can also hold this machine back. You can harness that power back and do some fairly good maneuvering with it. Some fairly good maneuvering. Yeah, that looks like, other than the light doing some sort of a weird scrolly thing, I think this gives you a good impression. Yeah, nothing super heavy duty. We're just going to be buzzing around. All righty, you ready? Here we go. Let me just cut my threads real quick. I don't want to run over those. These feed dogs do an excellent, excellent job. Excellent, excellent job. Let's slow it down even more. I got a little casual there. Come on, buddy. All right, that's probably far enough. I got a little distracted on that one turn, and I kind of went off course a little bit. There we go. Isn't that a beautiful full stitch? Again, we're set at the max right now of 6 stitches per inch. And it genuinely is a 6 stitch per inch pattern that we're generating right now with this machine. It's not going to give you something stubby or short. It's going to give you that full, beautiful, beautiful stitch that you can see right now. Let me pull this out. We'll take a look at it closer. And again, this is Italian leather. Italian leather tends to be a little slippery. It's a little bit tricky to sew. You can see the Italian has kind of a more of a nappiness to it, but you can still see those lock stitches just popping through and saying, "Look at me, look at me." And that lock stitch is always going to be more of a challenge, isn't it? Because it's pulling that thread back up through that thick layer of Italian leather. Well, I don't know about you, but for a machine that was first introduced in 1920, as far as the Class 101 series, this machine was so far ahead of its time with its innovation of the potted motor and the innovation of its built-in sump system so that it could be maintained from up top without having to tilt the machine back and trying to service the bottom of the machine. And it laid down stitching through every phase that we took it through, whether it's this Italian leather or the saddle grade leather. There we go. I got a little bit better of an angle with it now, I think. Commercial upholstery material, elk hide, fake leather, denim, 8 layers of that. And then, of course, we had to do 100% cotton. We had to do it. So it gives you an idea of how advanced this machine was when it was introduced in its earliest form at right around 1920. It was way, way, way ahead of its time for being able to give you this much stitch length variation with this degree of stitch quality. Pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. I don't have anything else to show you other than, yeah, that's it. I don't think I can show you another thing on this machine. I'd say this is a fair test for sure. Any questions about this machine? So a couple of questions just popped up. Joel was saying, did Singer make attachments like button holders? Absolutely. Um, this is set up as a low shank style machine, lock stitch. So really any of the attachments you could use on the 201-2, you could set up on this machine just as well. You could even technically set this machine up with an attachment like this, an automatic zigzagger, because all you need to do this type of work on a machine is a lock stitch style Singer machine. So even the auto zigzagger would work on this 101 as well. And you just have to be, you just have to be aware. You just have to be aware of setting it up properly. Oh, Emma was asking about the amps. This has a 0.6 amp motor on it, Emma. But again, with the innovations in motor design and technology, the later 201-2, even though most of them came with a 0.5 amp motor, so about a tenth of an amp less than what this motor is, because of the engineering of this machine and the fact that it has 1920s technology, um, they're going to perform equally well. You're not going to see the 201-2 blowing a 101 out of the water. They're going to be able to perform neck and neck. So, yeah, it's got a slightly, Paula's right. It does have a slightly larger motor, a 0.6 versus 0.5. But again, technology improved as Singer would make motors and they would improve the wraps and they would improve the stators and the commutators and everything else. They could take a smaller motor and have better output and better performance than some of the earlier versions of those motors. So again, just for review, Mary's 101-4 was first introduced in what year? Does anyone remember? What year did this class or this version of the 101 first come on the scene? Does anyone remember? It was in the 1920s. Well, the answer is, let's see, Emma said 1931. That's that's the year of this machine. This Dash 4 that belongs to Mary from Washington State was born in 1931, but the Dash 4 series actually came out a little bit earlier than that, right around 1929. 1929. So Mary's machine came on the scene about 3 years after the original series of the Dash 4 was introduced. Actually, 2 years, I guess it is, isn't it? Yeah, closer to 2 years. Does anyone remember how long they produced the Dash 4 series of the 101? When did they stop making these? This particular subclass? Yep, Mary's was born in 1931. You're absolutely right, Paula. Absolutely right. So they produced the Dash 4 until right around 1937. So from 1929 until 1937. Now, the models, just for sake of learning in the classroom, the models that preceded Mary's Dash 4 included the Dash 1, that was the very beginning of the Class 101 series. And that came on the scene again right around 1920. And they made that until 1925. Then they came on the scene with the 101-2 from 1922 until 1926. And then just before Mary's series, the Dash 4 came on the scene, they had the 101-3. And that was made from 1925 until 1930. So it's the Dash 3 stopped just a year before Mary's machine was born in 1931. There were a ton of other Class 101s that were following this series here. There was the Dash 10 that they made from 1922 to 1926. There was the Dash 11 that was made from 1925 to 1929. And then they also had UK versions as well, like the 201K that came on the scene right around 1934. So I could rattle down the list and rattle down the list and rattle down the list, but between the 101 and the 201 series, they had their bases covered with this potted version of the Singer machine. It really is a phenomenal answer to let's get rid of the belt and let's give a direct drive option to the machine that we never had before it was introduced in the 1920s. So great technology, great machine, and really a great predecessor to the Rolls-Royce of Singers. Yeah. Any other questions you can think of? No, I'm just glancing at Paula's question. I think in essence she's talking about the 127 and hand crank. Any of these machines can be set up as a hand crank version with the technology that they have now. It doesn't have to be pillar mounted because this particular machine, as you can see, doesn't have any mounting point where you would traditionally attach a hand crank. But by removing the balance wheel, you could easily set up this 101 as a hand crank version. Hopefully that's what she was asking. And yes, you can use them interchangeably, Paula. You can certainly have a hand crank on a machine while using it also in a treadle table. The only thing you run into sometimes then is winding a bobbin can become a little bit more cumbersome depending on the setup that you have with that hand crank. Well, I'm going to wrap up this live stream and thank Mary again from Washington State for purchasing this machine originally through eBay and then having the eBay seller send it directly to the workshop. And I think there were some other progress shots. Let me just check real quick. Let's see here. What else did we have? That was the end of that one. Yeah, I'll just click through these rather quickly. But these are part of the lubrication wells that are going to lubricate the main shaft off of the potted motor. And there's the interlacing gears that that potted motor actually slides into. You can just see how filthy they were at the beginning of that. You see all that crud right there? It just gives you an idea of why a motor like this would run so hot and why it wouldn't be turning with a full power when you're talking about all of this gumming up inside of that motor. See all that junk? That looks a little bit better, doesn't it? Fresh pink grease going in there as well. Look at how much cleaner that is than when we started with all of that sludge in there. Just incredible. You wouldn't get this level of servicing at a service center, folks. You just wouldn't. There's good old Isaac Singer. Look at all that stuff. Now those gears are not going to recontaminate that motor when that motor is remounted into the rear of this 101-4. All of that junk, fresh grease, motor brushes being cleaned as well. Lots of wiring challenges with this machine too. I think that's full circle already. That was a smaller group. It's actually upside down, isn't it? It's actually upside down. At any rate, you get the idea. Yeah, I've got the machine tilted back is why it looks like that. Now look at that. Look at that progression there. From that and that. You're starting to see that beautiful golden reflection starting to come back finally. Every little bit counts, doesn't it? Look at that. Doing a bypass on the motor right now after it's been fully serviced. There it is spinning up. It has so much more power than when it started. It's just crazy. So much more power. There again is all that junk that came out of the motor. There's our upper tension unit. That's cool. Look at the contrast between those pressure discs right there for that upper tension. The one on the left I've done cleaning on already. The one on the right is how the machine came fully serviced, fully restored from the eBay seller to the workshop. See that the standards of what people consider to be serviced can be so far off the mark. It just blows your mind. Just blows your mind. Look at that. That's the way they should look. And there's part of that sump system right there. You can see I've got the cover off, and you can see that looks almost like a spider type webbing where they they wanted to convince people that the machine would be much easier to maintain because you would just put a series of drops of oil, about 10 to 12 drops of oil in this little well right here, and then it would wick out to all these lubrication points. But as I've said in other presentations of the 101, the sump system was not a perfect technology. It missed a number of critical lubrication points that you had to still lubricate manually that the sump system would not reach. Part of our hook system there. Closer shot of the sump system. Excuse me. And that's the problem you run into whenever you get into the idea of auto lubrication. There's a number of manufacturers that tried to develop this concept. It gives the owner a false sense of security that the sump system is going to cover all the bases for the machine. Excuse me, but it simply doesn't do that. And your machine will end up breaking down if you rely solely on that sump system. More gears coming off of the main shaft through the pillar down here that also had to be serviced. Gives you an idea of the filthiness of the machine, right? Definitely not optimized yet. There we go. That looks better. Not to mention the machine can turn so easily when it doesn't have all of that choking, varnishing, and gunk and buildup on there. Really a lovely faceplate, isn't it? That's near the end of the balance wheel. More cleaning and more servicing there. There we go. There's the balance wheel. Getting that all cleaned up as well. One of many set washers that go on the end of that balance wheel. Again, if you've got a 101, just be really, really aware if you decide to disassemble it, that you get it in the correct order again. Kind of see my thumb there and give you an idea of just how filthy the machine was. Everything's reassembled again. Yeah, and that's full circle. So I just wanted to show that to you real quick because I've been kind of cutting you short as far as not showing you the progress shots. I've been adding them to the description, which is good. But I also want you to appreciate all of the steps that a machine like this has to go through to get it ready for a premiere like this. So you can always rewind this and rewatch the sew-offs that we did. Excuse me. But again, our setup with a leather needle. We sewed cotton with it, even though we have a leather needle in it. We did this Italian leather. Saddle grade leather, commercial upholstery material, elk hide, fake leather, and denim. So that's called the finish line. That's called the finish line when you take a machine through that many sew-offs during a live stream. And the machine just did a fantastic job, didn't it? Really an impressive machine. Again, first introduced in this subversion, the Dash 4, first introduced in 1929. And just a few years later, Mary's machine came on the scene in 1931. So impressive machine. If you have a chance to pick up a Class 101, I definitely encourage you to do it. Just realize it's going to require some very specialized servicing to get it to run at a level like this. Yeah, great machine. I got one more little piece of leather. I should probably just goof around with it, shouldn't I? One more little piece of leather. Protected full grain leather. We'll kind of go down and around on this. It's a real nice long one too. Let's zoom in on that. Probably cut this though, because it's super crazy long. There we go. Had this last little piece of leather. I would have felt bad if we didn't do something with it. Well, there you go. The Singer 101-4, first introduced in 1929, made until 1937. So Mary's is kind of right in the middle of that, being born in 1931. But a beautiful stitching machine. Excuse me. A beautiful stitching machine, quiet, and again, with their sump design, gave you the ability to maintain the machine a little bit easier than, say, the 201-2 that you do have to tilt back and service it from the bottom. So a lot of thoughtful design in this model for sure. All right, I could blah, blah, blah all day long, but hopefully you enjoyed seeing this machine do its thing. And I'll add this last little sew off that we just did for fun. And again, thank you to Mary for going through the extra steps of getting this machine from eBay all the way to the workshop. So there you go. I'll put on a little bit of music. Y'all can chat a little bit more and just kind of admire this this fabulous, fabulous first edition of what eventually became the Rolls-Royce of Singer sewing machines, the 201-2. So great machine. All right. Thanks, everybody. had all that empty space in there. I couldn't help myself. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that beautiful? Ah, my cotton. There we go. Let's slide the cotton in there.